Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever. Yeah, check it out. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of In a Good Way podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Ona Christie. She's an artist, energy worker, psychic clairvoyant, and ascension guide. She also owns her own business. I first learned of Ona Christie watching her spirit animal videos. She had her YouTube channel is called Art of Awakening, and there were times where it's like I'm aware of what some of the animals mean, but never really went so in depth. And so when I would search out to see who could give me more information on a certain spirit animal, I came across her channel. And I think out of everybody I've listened to, she's gone the most in depth. So I love listening to her videos while I'm driving, hiking, however. So that's how I came to learn about her. I'll let her speak now, so I don't keep, yapping. That's what we're here for, to hear her story. So first off, I kind of want to go all the way back to the beginning. I mean, I really, honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't know you were also a psychic clairvoyant. I don't think I had heard you personally mention it in one of your videos, because usually on the spirit animal videos, you go into it, right? This is about the owl. This is about the deer. Yeah. And you just start talking about it. And so I would like to start at the beginning. When did you first start realizing you had gifts? And we'll start with there. And how was it? Like, were people accepting of it at first, or how did it go?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because I think, we all have gifts, and the gifts are going to naturally express themselves through us throughout our lives. So starting from infancy, your gifts are going to be shining out. And it's just a matter of perceiving, what these gifts are, and expressing themselves or understanding them at different levels, right? So from a very, very young age, since I could hold a crayon, I was drawing, right? And so, I'd always see the animals and things, right? And draw them. And it was I think when I was in college, I started to realize that when I did a painting, it would be a couple of years later, I'd look at it and be like, oh, well, I understand the meaning of that now. That's really symbolic, right? And it would be, I'd have to kind of move through the experience. So it was like the painting would come in, and then I'd move through the experience, and then I'd recognize afterwards that kind of revealed something about what I was going through, or that I didn't understand until I experienced it. But it was like at that time, like I was starting to see this, but I'd never really talked to anybody about the spirituality or anything. The spirituality just wasn't on my radar screen, even though I would get downloads and I'd recognize it's like, oh, I started getting this information. But it was like nobody in my circles spoke in those terms. So it was sort of like I was aware, but not aware in a way. And I think probably a lot of people could probably relate to that.
I'm relating right now. So
yeah, because this is like something that I think is recently in the last couple decades starting to come more in the mainstream. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. It was probably about 2014. I had been working as a freelance writer for a while, and I had a friend who was also trying to get into the freelance writing space, and just it didn't cut it for her. And I finally got this call from her, and she's like, I found out I'm not a writer. I was like, oh, really? Oh, what are you? And she said, I'm an energy healer. And I was like, well, what's an energy healer? And so she kind of explains this. And it was funny because this just tells you how kind of segregated we have these things in our minds. I was already certified as I had been through like up to Reiki 3, right? I had been practicing this Reiki, and I didn't quite get what energy healing was, even though to me it was like Reiki, right? It's like, and I don't even know what impelled me to take the Reiki classes. But at this point, I was already certified in Reiki, and I was like, what's an energy
Mm.
healer? So she explains to me kind of what she was doing. She was in this certification course, and it was like this energy scan training. And so she said, hey, next time you're in my area, let's get together. I'll demonstrate to you. Right.
Oh, okay.
So I happened to be kind of traveling through because I was about to move, and she lived in Milwaukee. I was in Illinois at the time. And so she did this work on me, right? And this was right before I moved, and I moved back up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And as soon as I got up here, that's when things started to kind of really explode and open up, right? And the first night I was back up here, I had this dream, and in the dream there were all these patterns in the sky, and I just knew it was Thunderbird, right? And I didn't know what a Thunderbird was. I had to look it up the next day. But Thunderbird was in this dream, and it had this message for me, and it was like it was clear as day. And then shortly after that, I had this sort of download. I'm gonna take hold my dad in my mind, just think about my dad, and grab my pencil and see what comes out. Again, it's just one of those, like, why did I do that? I don't know. It was something
Mm.
that just sort of it's you know what, whatever. I was directed to do it. And so I drew this thing, and it was this beautiful bear goddess she's holding this big crystal ball, and she's got this bear and this goddess image. And I looked at that, and it was like, there was something about it that really was like, oh my God, that belongs to my dad. That is something that is there, that there was something about the energy of that explained a lot about my dad. And so I was like, wow. And it was just sort of like, it was just one of these sort of unfolding, blossoming things, and just realizing your gifts, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is something I would never do now without permission, because back then I didn't know about a lot of the kind of spiritual hygiene and spiritual, permissions that need to be done. So I don't advocate this, but I started like thinking about my friends and kind of doing the same thing, just opening up to their energy, and it was like time after time I could see the relationship and see where that symbol had something for them, right? And again, I do this, right, for people, but at this time, first of all, I'm doing it professionally, or even if it's friends, it's always got to be with permission, right? But that was sort of the unfolding of realizing, that there's something more, and that one can be conscious and tune into it in a conscious way.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. And when you talked about the painting reminding you of your dad, had he already passed away? Is
Oh no, he's still alive. He's still
okay.
still living. um and I guess related to that, I had a painting, and because a lot of times when you paint, you just open up to whatever it is,
Yes.
and sometimes it'll come through, and after it's done you realize, oh, this really is connected with a particular person. I feel like that's different, that spirit, and probably that person's higher self or whatever, working through you.
Mm.
And then you are given that, it's like, I need to share this with this person.
Mhm.
So I don't feel like that's the same thing as proactively deciding I'm gonna just tune into Omar's energy, right? Or but at least there has to be moving in and consulting with their higher self. If even if I'm not like talking to you, calling you up, hey Omar, I'm gonna do this, at least I have to feel into your higher self and ask permission, and you can feel it. Like if that permission isn't there, it's like, just don't even try. Don't go there, because you're gonna be you're gonna be going where you're not welcome, and that never opens up anything good. But sometimes you can really feel with the higher self that, oh yeah, do this, normally it's not something I'd probably do, but you never know. Sometimes such situations come up, right? Or especially if it's something that you're connected with that person,
Mm.
you can do that about the relationship between you, because you are part of that. So you have that, I guess, permission to be there because it's part of you, right?
Mm.
So if you're talking about the relationship between Omar and Ona, right, then we can, go in and do all sorts of inquiry there, because it's, you own it too.
So now, okay, you opened up a whole another thing, but so I want to ask you about that because I've had a lot of dreams where I dream about people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was hearing a noise. I guess my phone was by the speaker. Let me just throw it. So I dreamed of people, right? And I always felt like it was their higher self coming to
Yeah.
tell me, like, either, like, when and I don't mean it in any disrespectful way, but it's like maybe they weren't spiritually awake yet. And I
Yeah.
almost felt like if it was them in the, like, their higher self, which was evolved, coming
Right.
to tell me, like, hey, wake me up. Or
Yeah.
because sometimes it was someone I knew them, but I felt like maybe we're connected from a past life, because I've never met this person
Hmm.
in person.
Yeah.
And in the spirit world, it's like we know each other really well.
Yeah.
And but then when I would just do it, I'd be bold and I would message them.
Hmm.
And sometimes I would feel like, are they thinking like, who's this weirdo? Or but I would feel like, okay, they came into my dream, or
Yeah.
I don't know how it worked, or I went into theirs, but somehow there's this connection. Like, I have a friend that is open to it, right? And I remember even once it was a clear message, something with their, like, like, I'm sure you all understand, but it's like you see pieces and somehow your brain gets used to making out what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was able to make out identity, something, and I messaged her, hey, did someone steal your identity? And she laughed at me, like, ah, ha, ha, you and your dreams, And then the next day she messages me, oh, I got a letter that my identity was
Oh my
compromised.
gosh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So I was like, I didn't say I told you so or something, but I was just like, I told you, like, in my head, I was like, my dreams don't lie. Like, I know
Right.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, people would laugh at me.
Yeah.
And but I think I've shut down maybe over the past year or something. I'm not as expressive. I'll dream about somebody and now I don't want to, because sometimes it felt like that. Like, there were a few people I came across that I felt like they were probably, like, they gave me that energy, like, I don't know, or they didn't respond. They just left me on red, kind of thing. And I'm like, all right, I know I'm not supposed to act from my ego. So I just
Yeah.
said, okay, I delivered the message. They made me feel stupid because they just left me, they left me on red. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so in your either opinion or your knowing, so you feel that somehow there's permission, then I'm not being
I,
invasive, like,
I
there's
I feel that, like, yeah, if they've entered your dream space, um, there's yeah, you that's something that's come to you. It's not like you decided from your ego, oh, I'm gonna go and pry into their energy or their, field.
okay.
It's like they're, if anything, they've penetrated yours. So it's like, then you need to decide what to do with it, whether to bolster, your own protections and shields, if it feels invasive, or if it
Mm.
feels more like this is a soul calling of yours to receive, messages on behalf of people, then
Oh.
you can work with that. But you always also want to be cognizant of your own energy and maintaining your own energy. So you can, like, I've spoken, I'm not a medium, but I've spoken with several. And and I think this is especially true for the people who are called to be mediums, or who have that gift, who have people or beings from the other side constantly trying to contact them. And I've spoken with a couple of mediums. They're like, there's the deceased constantly trying to contact me and ask about loved ones and this and that. And it can get very overwhelming. It's like they're constantly wanting you to do stuff. And so each one of these individuals had to come to this point where they're like, either they're like, no, I'm just not open for business, or okay, these are my business hours. I'm open now, but you know, I'm open for this coming hour, whatever. I'm open for this, but now it's time for me to, go do my life, right? I need to get to sleep. I need to eat dinner. I need to get my work done. Leave me alone right now. So there's got to be this protection of your own space and your own time, because these things can kind of invade you.
And yeah, I don't want to interject too much because
Yeah.
I want to make this about you, but I experienced that. My brother passed away a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I had a medium friend that helped me through the process, and it wasn't the experience was just mind blowing, right? Like everything, the way it all happened, and even going to his house and her telling me, oh, there's this, and then we find all these things, so I guess it was, at least I already believed her anyways, because it's like the first time she opened up to me about being a medium, she was like, I'm not crazy, right? And I was like, if you're crazy, I'm crazy, because I experienced so many things like that. But during that time, I guess because my brother had passed, everything opened up for me. It was like there was no wall. I guess because I wanted to communicate with him, everything opened for me. So I started hearing other things, and I asked her, I was like, hey, like, so I don't envy them at all. Like I don't think, or at least at that time, I definitely wasn't, ready for that. Like, to be laying down, you hear a woman's voice or a man's voice, and you're like, and I asked her, how do you do it? And she said what you said about, like, you just tell them no, like, that's it. Like, but the way you explained it, like, kind of how business, that makes a lot of sense. Like, to just like close for business.
Right. Yeah. And then of course some people actually make it a business, right? And that's fine.
Like,
and I think that is it can be part of the whole boundary thing.
yeah, and
the energy exchange. It's like, I need to receive energy in exchange for this, because I'm expending energy doing this, right? You're devoting your energy to being this translator, and it's taking your time and it's taking your energy. And so whether or not, I mean, you can choose to be in business, but I think there's a lot of stigma in some circles in the spiritual world around making it a business, and one has to recognize that when we do any kind of spiritual work, it is work, and it does draw on our energy, or it can draw on our energy. It can also build it up depending on how you do it. But it does, it's your time and your energy and your, what you bring to it. And so when you're giving and giving and giving, it can drain you really bad if there's got to be an energy exchange. If somebody is taking from you what what you have to give, and without any kind of payback. And now payback doesn't have to be in money, and it doesn't have to be even to you, and it depends on it. I mean, it all depends really on kind of where you're coming from and where your needs are, how your needs are being met already. I have a friend who is a practitioner. She does wonderful kind of past life retrieval work. And all her physical needs are met. She has like, her money needs, she doesn't have to worry about that. She's got, I don't know what her situation is, but I know that she's set for life. So she offers her services for free. Even she does have boundaries around it, though. She's like, if somebody's coming to me constantly, eventually I have to say, no, that's enough, because it's sort of like that. They start attaching to you, and it's almost that vampiric kind of thing that can happen, right? And even if the person's not intending that, right? It's if they're really super needy and not offering anything in exchange, that becomes vampiric. So it doesn't have to be through money, but it can be, and that's very acceptable as long as it's done in alignment with your higher self, right? So I'm just saying that in case there's anybody out there that is feeling, I see it a lot in light workers where they have a business because they're feeling drawn. They want to do this for a living. They want to just do this. They want to be able to have the freedom to exercise their gifts in a way, that just to share what they have with the world. And in our society, usually that means, if you don't want to be spending 8 hours of your day doing something else, you got to turn it into a business.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's this whole guilt and shame and whatever, all the stigma around it. And so you got to think of money as just pure energy. It's an energy flow. And if you're expending energy, there's got to be some kind of exchange, and money is just a very neutral way to do that, to receive that in exchange. So I don't know why we're talking about money, but
No,
it's energy. And yeah.
If anything, I feel like that message definitely resonated with me. That's something, because I mean, in the beginning part of my life, I wasn't around it, but then later, I joined like a native community. And so around, obviously native culture, your gifts, you don't charge for them. It's like, it's almost like, I guess it would be that the stigma of like it being kind of bad medicine to charge for something you're getting for free. Like, who are you to, like, but it's nonetheless, like every time, like if you go to an elder or something, you bring an offering. So like you said, there's an energy exchange, right? There's
the thing. And I think in this society, money is the exchange, the medium of exchange. And so, yeah, it can, I've had a lot of struggle with this myself, right? Because the danger is when there's money attached, your ego can easily step in, right? And so, for me personally, I feel like for me, I'm kind of like working on alignment, and it's like the money isn't going to flow completely through, my spiritual work until I'm really aligned with it. Right. And I do a lot of like the channel, anything that you're putting out there, that's freely given. Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with what's in your heart, what feels good in your heart, right? So money is part of the picture. Ultimately, we may move out of money altogether in our society. I think ultimately we'll probably do that. For now, it is part of the world and how people interact. And so you have to really balance what are your needs. And if you're grasping for more than your needs, that's when it can get unbalanced. So you have to work with money as almost like another energy of nature, right? That you have to work with and be respectful of, and make sure that you're working with in alignment with your higher purpose. So when you're aligned, the money will come in as needed. And don't, like, sometimes we shortchange ourselves as to what we think we need, and sometimes we are over grasping of what we think we need. So it's a balance, just like anything else.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. Thank you for saying all of that. I mean, especially for anyone listening, and like myself, like I said, I got a lot out of it. And I think you're 100% right. Whether others agree or not, I think like even in like the native community, it's more like, I think intentions has a lot to do with it. Like we've heard the stories, like when someone tries to do a sweat, like I've been to tons of sweat ceremonies, never paid once, right? But you hear about, someone's running a sweat and they're charging people that never, they make it like, partake in the native experience. And then someone ends up dying because they ran they ran it made it way too hot, and someone ends up dying inside the sweat. And you hear, and then, so they associate that like, oh, this person, they were charging, they were doing it in a bad way, like that was bad medicine the way they did it. And so when you hear that, you're like, okay, so you correlate the two. It might be that, or I think it's just the intentions, right? Like you said, they weren't doing it really to help people, or I mean, I can't judge since I wasn't there. I really don't know their intentions, but it would almost seem like that, like it became more of a financial.
Yeah, intentions are huge. And also, the traditions that you have adopted, right? If you like I have a friend who's an Orthodox Jew, and she's
Mhm.
actually the one that did the energy work on me. And she has consciously, she wasn't raised Orthodox, so
Mhm.
she chose that as an adult. But regardless, you know, if you consciously are part of a tradition, then it's really important that you pay attention to those traditions, right? And you know, it's my traditions and my ancestry is not the same as yours. And so we need to work also with our own kind of the tradition or the culture or the ancestry that we have. We can choose to follow a path, right? Or we can adopt what was given through our ancestry. In my case, as a white American, there's been a lot of loss of what the ancestral teachings are. Okay, so I and others in my of my race are like sort of like floating around trying to reconstruct you know what the laws are, what the you know what that really means. And so you know I have to approach money from that perspective of kind of almost rediscovering what is it and redefining what is it to me, how can I use this in a way that it's aligned, right? But I'm coming from this from an outside of the tradition place, right? Where it's, and I think, I think, you know, with my ancestry, and actually all of us, because the world is such a different place than it ever was before, we're having to reinvent things, right? And redefine things. That's the juncture we're at right now. It's this big, you know, chaotic dissolution of everything that has kind of built the world that we have, so that we can pick up the pieces, choose the pieces that are still healthy, and reconstruct, right? Rebuild, rebirth the world, rebirth ourselves as humanity. So a lot of it, it's sort of like uh, throwing a bunch of paint on the canvas and then starting to see what emerges from it.
You know, it's funny that you said I wasn't sure if I was gonna share this, but I had this dream. I don't know if it was a month ago or more. Maybe, oh, maybe a few. Oh, what? It says I'm running out of time. That's
Oh,
never. I had no idea that with this Zoom, I had to. I've been using it without paying for the.
yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be horrible. So once it runs out, I guess I can't. That's gonna be the end of it, or
Oh, either that or you want to, you know, we could resume two. You'd have to kind of graph the two together, or part one and part two.
would I be
Whatever
able
you
to
want
stop
to
it?
do.
No, I could do that. Would I be able to stop and re-record, or I wonder if it all?
You'd probably have to start in a meeting,
Okay,
which
I'll
is
start
fine.
it.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, yeah,
However you want to do it.
okay, yeah, because wow, yeah, I feel like we're barely getting started, but I I I wanted to say that, I mean, maybe it was a couple months ago. I had this dream, and since you mentioned New World, it was like I was with this group of people, and we were walking down this one path,
Mhm.
and on the right was, it looked like a brand new city. There was like even skyscrapers, and the sun was it almost looked golden the way the sun was reflecting on it. On the left, there were all these green, beautiful hills. Everything was so green,
Mhm.
but then there was this wolf, right? And it was eating in
Yeah.
the big hills. And I turned to someone to the right, and it looked like you. Like now that that's
Ah,
why it's funny, like, because I was always like, I wonder who that was. And I tell them, oh, look the wolf. And they're like, where? And I'm like, right there, right there. But then the wolf turns, and then it had antlers. So I was like, oh wait, it's a deer. It's not a wolf, it's a deer. But then
mhm.
it turns, and I'm like, wait, it's a wolf with antlers. And I had never seen that before. So when I woke up, I Googled it, and all these pictures of like people had, and there was even a native story of these wolves with antlers.
Really, I've never heard of that. That is like I've got chills because
Oh wow.
there's. Oh my God, that's really powerful. But go ahead, keep going because I'm.
Yeah, no, I kind of was curious because when I dream also, I'm always curious, like, I wonder if this other person had this dream as well. So I feel like it was you, because even I had seen pictures of you with your hair shorter, and now that I see that your hair is longer, it was
Yeah.
someone with, like the hair looked more like the way it is now that I can see. And since you do the spirit animals, it makes
Right.
sense to me. It was like, and I guess I kind of had a question of, have you ever seen, like, not just the normal animals we see, but stuff like that, like to dream of something that I had never seen before, and then to see that there's already drawings of it, or
Yeah.
there's even stories about it. Like, has that ever happened to you?
Yeah. Well, like the Thunderbird thing, right?
Oh,
I guess I must have somewhere heard the term Thunderbird, but I didn't really know what it was. But it came through so clear in my dream. And it came through as almost like geometric patterns in the sky.
wow.
But it was like it was just Thunderbird. I just knew that's what it was. And then once I researched it, I was like, oh, of course, yeah.
Mm,
So yeah, that kind of thing definitely happens. It's happened to me a lot with um, kind of some of the goddesses or angels. Um, they'll come through, and either you'll get the name or you'll get. I did a video a while back last summer on Archangel Ariel, because I did this painting, and it's this beautiful flowy kind of goddess image, lots of greens and pinks. And I knew, I did it, but I didn't know who it was. And I was like, it feels, I wasn't sure if it was a goddess or an angel or what it was. So I had to kind of feel into, okay, what are some characteristics here, and start doing the research. And as soon as you start reading about these things, and after a little bit, it was that I could kind of popped in. It's like, of course it's Ariel. Like the
mm,
colors were right, and it was all about the earth, but it was showing an aspect of her that really isn't talked a lot about, right? So,
oh, wow.
if you go to my channel and search for Ariel, you'll find that video.
Okay.
But yeah.
So how are you already familiar? Like, you have already seen angels that have visited you, or or even the word download. For those that don't know, like, if you could explain, like, to you what the meaning of downloads are.
A download is just information that comes to you. It's a knowing. It's like you suddenly realize you just know this, or sometimes it comes as a phrase. This has to do with the clair senses, right? The third senses, or whatever they are, because we receive information in a pure way, through spiritual vibration, and our physical body receives that information in physical ways, right? Through our eyes, through vision, through taste, through smell, through hearing, and sense. Well, with the spiritual information, it kind of comes through, filtered through those five physical senses, right? So when we say we're clairvoyant, means we have that gift of second sight,
Mm,
and that we're seeing images, or we're aware of images. But it's sort of like it comes through because our bodies are designed the way they are. Like, we kind of perceive it as sight, even though it's really just information. Clairaudient, you're receiving words, or phrases, or whatever it is, right? Clairsentient, most people just feel the energy, right? If you pick up a crystal, you can feel it.
oh, wow.
Right, or that's something that's taken me a while to unlock. But this claircognizance, cognition is to understand. It's that understanding where suddenly it's like you have this knowledge that just comes from apparently out of nowhere, because you're tapping into the ether, you're tapping into the spiritual field of all that is.
Thank you, thank you. And do you think, like, I guess, I want to go into, like, the Akashic Records, right? Is that connected to
Oh,
that, or is
absolutely.
that something completely different?
Absolutely right. And I guess we've got like 3 minutes left. I think I can answer
Oh, okay, you
this.
could see it too. I didn't
Um,
know. I don't
yeah.
know.
So the Akash, that's your, if you feel into, like, you've got your ego, and then you've got your higher self, right? Which is like your higher ego, your aligned ego, which is your individual part of spirit that is fully connected with the all, right? Um, So the first universal law says that the universe is mental, that the universe is all consciousness.
Mm.
And so when we think of spirits in general, that's the all, that's all of the universal consciousness. But then we each, as part of the universal consciousness, have our own, like our higher being, right? Our higher consciousness that we are a part of. And then the ego is another like little harmonic of that, that is kind of, it gets funky, but I won't go into that. But we can tap into that higher self, and through the higher self, we can tap into the universal consciousness. And so the Akash, your Akashic records, the Akash is like, it's all the information that's ever been. And so, but you have your own Akashic records, which is your higher essence, um, that taps into, it's like your higher essence and all your past and future lifetimes, all that experience that you can directly tap into because it is part of your individual portion of the all. And so when we tap into that, we can tap into, um, you know, all the experience that we've had and ability to connect with the rest of creation. And so when we receive this information, these downloads, it is pretty much through the Akash that we do it, our connection with the universal field. And then you can also consciously ask to receive information through your own particular Akashic records. So when we're working with other people, you know, there's where that permission comes in, right? You know, when I work with people and with Akashic stuff, I always am like, well, I'm working my higher self and your higher self, and we're collaborating, you know, and I can tune into my Akashic records in order to retrieve information that where our fields meet, right, where we've had connection. Um, and or I can ask your higher self to, you know, relay information.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let me stop it, and hopefully I'll be able to go back on, and then we'll just finish up. I have a few questions about the Akashic records, and then, you know, I don't want to keep you as long as you, however much time you have, and if not,
I'm
then
good. I've got 20 minutes or so. So
okay, okay, perfect. So
yeah.
let me, I guess, hit end real quick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I want to feel this way forever.